This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.
Right. There he is. How you feeling, Ira? You had a good weekend?
Had a good weekend. It was, I was listening just now to you talking about rockers who can't rock and be themselves anymore. And the one thing that reminded me of is Billy Joel, when he just did his, they did the tape of his 100th concert at the Garden. Yep. And he even stood up there before he sang Innocent Man. And he said, look, I'm not sure I can hit these notes anymore, so I apologize ahead of time. And so many times you will hear, instead of going for the high notes or the loud notes, they'll bring it back in, but at least they're honest with what they can and can't do.
Oh, they'll back away from the mic. They'll back away from, it's a trick they use. They'll back away from the mic so you can't hear the whole high note fading away.
Of the voice, yeah. So, but I respect the rockers who would at least come out and say, I'm not who I was 10, 15, 20, 40 years ago. But if you're here for the nostalgia, I can deliver that. And that's what I appreciate. I'm going to try to get through this. Let's do it together. But the one thing you said, which so resonates with me, and I've said this even when they're young and everything, when they put the mic out, so you fill in the words, I'm like, no, I didn't come to hear the guy behind me singing. I could go to a cheap karaoke bar and hear that. I came to hear you for a lot of money these days. To me, that's the worst trick. Okay, do it on one song. You have one song where you understand that everyone's going to do it, and Steve Perry's going to know that everyone wants to sing the chorus. I get that. But don't do it for every song. I'm not here to do karaoke or hear karaoke. I agree with that.
Yeah, they pull that shit off, and it just is kind of crazy, man. Overall, let's before we get to the Heat stuff,
sure.
Playoff wise, and this a little Heat related in a way.
Okay.
I love Ant-Man because he's really growing up to be a leader, and while he gets all the praise, and he played well yesterday, and they lost, but I love the way he approached Game 3, where he was the lightning rod, because that's what all great players are supposed to be. You're going to get the credit all the time when you win, but the really great players and the great leaders like Spo, they step to the forefront when it's at its worst and say, no, dude, it's all on me. I screwed up, okay? Like Spo does the same shit all the time. We had enough. No excuses. We know he didn't have enough.
Right.
Spo will never make an excuse and say, no, we had enough. We couldn't get it done, yada, 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 all this and that. And, it won't make any. But I love the way Ant, for a young guy, he's really taking hold of what a franchise face is supposed to do.
Yeah, they talked about it during the broadcast. Reggie talked about it, Jamal Crawford, and I do agree. I think the comparisons to Jordan aren't fair because they're never fair. The comparisons to Dwayne Wade, I think, are very real. As somewhat of an undersized scorer who still finds his way, who's willing to play in the mid-range because he knows that that's his shot, who will get to the basket if you let him get there. The Ant-Man I'm seeing right now is when I saw the genesis of Dwayne Wade in that playoff series against the Hornets, when they played, New Orleans in Dwayne's first playoff series and what he did. They might not get all of the way. I think ultimately Denver has the deeper starting lineup, potentially deeper roster. But you could see the move, and you could see who Ant-Man is. And those who were debating LaMelo Ball or Ant-Man now know the right direction there. Sort of like Dwayne Wade going at number 5. God bless you, Darko Milicic, and to a lesser degree, even Carmelo from Chris Bosh for going earlier. But you see who the gem of the league is. And what I love about him is how charismatic he is. Yeah. That the NBA has been a league about charisma, and he knows that. And whether it's the Adam Sandler movie he made, not so great, but at least he got himself out there and he showed what he could be. Yeah, I think Anthony Edwards very much, if you're asking me, hey, who's the future of the NBA right now, he would have to be on that Mount Rushmore in that top 5 in that starting lineup right now.
Ira, the sad part is, but the reality, and it's the truth, you lived it just like I did because we're old enough. This whole Michael Jordan comparisons, people got to stop, and they got to understand that Michael Jordan was an SOB from the get-go. From North Carolina, he hit the biggest shot on the team, and we all joked, that the only guy that could contain Michael Jordan was Dean Smith, not anybody else. It was Dean Smith. And the second he got into the NBA, he dominated the NBA. The problem is, you and I lived this. He was playing with Rory Sparrow and Orlando Woolridge. You can only do so much in the early days with that. But he was always a son of a bitch. It's not like he learned to like LeBron. We saw him graduate here in the Boston series where it became like he became that guy. Michael was always that guy. Please stop with the comparisons. And now Ant-Man, and now we want to do the stop it already.
Right.
This guy was Larry Bird and Magic Johnson and Michael Jordan were sons of bitches way before they were in the NBA. They didn't learn to be dogs in the NBA. They didn't learn to carry teams in the NBA. They were that already. And that's where I just think that if you don't have the perspective and you didn't live it, you just really can't do the comparisons, dude.
And it's also way before the age of fraternization, where guys were out to rip your heart out instead of growing up in the AAU system, where everyone's your buddy, where after the hardest of hardest fights, guys wind up hugging each other at midcourt and moving on, and Bam Adebayo telling you how much he loves Jason Tatum and how they've been friends and they go way back. It's just a different time. Michael Jordan would not only cut your throat out, he would cut the throat of his teammates out like he did when he punched Steve Kerr during practice, because that's who they are. Larry Bird didn't grow up in that system. He grew up out on his farm. He just wanted to make hoops. He just wanted to win games. He just wanted to wear the Celtics green. That's who we were. Magic Johnson the same way. If it meant getting Pat Riley fired, so be it. He was out there. He was cutthroat. We're not cutthroat anymore. And we're not cutthroat anymore because there's so many other avenues to fame. The avenue to fame used to be greatness and greatness alone. How many times, Big O, do you see these commercials? God bless Shea Gilgeous-Alexander and Chet Holmgren, but please stop singing. But you don't have to be a star you don't have to be a basketball star to be ubiquitous otherwise anyway. That's where it's changed a little bit. Those guys were great because of basketball. Eventually the sneakers, the commercials came, but it was because of the game. Now it's all about the marketing. Now it's all about the social media. I do agree with that.
It's just those guys were dogs, bro, right from the get-go. It was just, and they were thrown right into the spotlight, and it was just like, and the world of the pressure was on them right from the get, and they responded like champs, dude. I'm just saying those are people that are cut from a completely different, and I don't want to take anything away from Ann, or I don't want to take anything away from LeBron or any of these kind of guys, but we're so desperate to go grab the next this, the next that, and we want to make. And by the way, the Ant stuff, I'd like for Tyler Hero to watch that a little bit, because, when he had his moment and then they went after him and he didn't respond, well, they were pushing me and tugging me and this and that. And, that's the moment where, kid, shut up. I had a bad night. I got to respond. That's what you needed to say. And not make the excuses. Learn from your coach. Learn from other players.
But that's innate, Big O. But Big O, either you are an SOB or you aren't an SOB. Say what you want about Jimmy Butler and all he's putting the Heat through. But the reason Jimmy Butler got to be Jimmy Butler is he's an SOB. He didn't give a crap about his coaches or his teammates or anywhere. He wanted to win. He wanted to do it his way. He wanted to prove it. That's the difference. Either you have the SOB in you. LeBron became the ultimate SOB. When someone finally pointed out, like you mentioned, if you're not going to post up JJ Barea and let him guard you in the post, you have a problem here, kid. Learn how to handle it. Learn how to do it. That's when he became an SOB, even if it meant toward his coaches and some other teammates. You have to be that kind of player. It's across sports. You either are that kind of player, you aren't. And you know what? You can be a nice guy and still be an SOB. And a guy who now currently for us, we can talk about in our market, would be someone like a Barkov. He might look like the nicest guy, but he'll cut your heart out also. That's the difference. So you can be a genuinely decent person, but when you're between the four lines, when you're on the ice, when you're on the field, you have to have that mentality. And you know what? That's not something that's coached into you. You either are, like you like to say, Big O, a dog, or you're not a dog. And you know what? The one example you've given me over the years in our Accurate Pembroke Pines report is Bam. What a great person he is. What a great son he is. What a great teammate he is. But is he that ultimate dog, and will he ever be?
No. No, wait a minute. He's
Okay.
a dog. He's a dog, but he's kind of a blue collar dog because you can't play like him and not be a dog.
No,
Now,
he's a bulldog. He's not a Rottweiler.
he's
Sometimes you have to be like Udonis and you have to be a Rottweiler.
right, exactly. He's part of the pack, not the leader of the pack, is kind of what it is. He's a badass because he's part of the group. You know, he might be part of the Lords of Flatbush, but he may not be the lead guy of the Lords of the Flatbush.
And if he cuts your heart out, he'll give it back to you after. That's the difference. Yes.
Yeah. Hand it back to you in a velvet box
Nice.
and all that kind of stuff. Okay, now here's where I was wrong. But then again, maybe it's the lack of experience. But I thought OKC was going to get a hold of this series, and here are the Mavs with a 2-1 lead. I got to say, I didn't see this coming, and that's because I also label that Dallas team as soft as always. So props to Kyrie, props to Doncic and boys.
No, I'm going to disagree. What's really the playoffs are showing me, Big O, is because I've been watching the Stanley Cup and I'm watching the NBA. In the Stanley Cup, there's so many legitimate contenders out there, from the Panthers to the Rangers, even Colorado in their shape. They're in Dallas. In the NBA, I really think there's only three, I'd say maybe great teams in the playoffs this year. I think in the East, it's Boston alone. Now, New York's had its injuries, so we haven't seen them with Randall, Mitchell Robinson, OG, and Anunoby. I understand that. But I think the only teams I'm watching now in the playoffs, and I'm saying that's a legitimate championship contender, are the Celtics, are the Nuggets, and are the Timberwolves. So, yes, the Thunder Mavericks series might be competitive. On that level, Dallas is showing it. But those aren't great teams. Those aren't ready in the moment teams. Those are absolutely flawed teams, which is why if a team like the Heat stayed alive longer or had different matchups, they could have endured, because I think there's only one good team in the East. Don't tell me Indiana's good. New York is hurt. Indiana's okay. Don't tell me Cleveland is any good because they won a game in Boston.
Yeah. Let's not shit on Indiana. They're a good team.
Good,
but you're right.
but not great.
The Knicks, the injuries, dude. The injuries have killed the Knicks.
And even if the Knicks had everyone together, they weren't on the Celtics level. In the East, there was the Celtics all season and everyone else because Milwaukee never can get their crap together. This was a year, if you got the right matchups, you could have made a deep run. If the Heat gave a crap about the regular season, writing that again tomorrow on my Ask Ira because I'm fed up about it, there's one team in the East. Heat wins 2 more games. They're in the exact same spot right now that Indiana is. Feasting on a hurt New York team, getting ready to play Boston in the conference finals, but you didn't give a crap and you paid for it. But to me, as I watch the NBA finals, I don't know what the odds are. I think there are 3 teams with legitimate championship resumes: the Celtics, the Nuggets, and the Timberwolves, and everyone else is just out there having a nice little time.
So let me ask you something. What is it about the Celtics that they have that thing, that lull in them, that letdown in them, like they did with the Heat?
Sure, game 2.
They kicked the Heat's ass in game 1 in the first half. And then the big 2 got bored in the second half, kind of coasted in that first game. And then they got bored and it rolled over into game 2 where Miami came out red hot. And when by the time they woke up, it was too late. You're done. You can't get in there. And then they woke up and took care of it. And again, it happened in this series where they kind of like let a team back in. It's like we know they have the talent, but there's a chink in the armor, that there's a weakness. They will give you an opportunity to get into a game or a series if you let them fall asleep a little bit or something. I bore them a little bit or something. I don't get it. There's something about this Celtics team that they can't, like the Panthers. The Panthers were off for a week and you saw that it hurt them a little bit in game 1. Then they got their wake-up call, and they've been the best team right there from the get-go, and they've proven it. The Celtics can do stuff like that, but they don't. So
you know what? But the Celtics remind me of the Panthers a little, or I should say the Panthers remind me of the Celtics. They know they're good enough to win any game against any team, but sometimes they just need that little bit of a spark. For the Panthers, it was losing the 1 game to the Bruins. I think it's the same thing for the Celtics, losing the 1 game to the Heat, 1 game in the series against Cleveland. That's why we call it a gentleman's sweep, the 5-game series, because sometimes what's my motivation here? Oh, you think you're good enough because you won game 2? Well, here, boom, 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 take care of you. That's what I expect in this series. If they play the Knicks, I expect the same thing in the next series, and then they'll have something real in front of them. And then they'll have someone telling them from the get-go, hey, this Denver team can beat you. This Timberwolves team can beat you. and I think it'll have their full attention. They're that much better. I would expect the Panthers to do the same thing. They'll let the Rangers play their little ice capades and skate around him for a game and Panarin get his goal, and then they'll say, we're going to check the crap out of him. We're going to start hitting him again. We'll take care of him. Because when you know you're better, sometimes you need that little bit of extra motivation. The difference with the Celtics is they're without a leading man right now in Kristaps Porzingis. So they are biding their time a little. But when that roster is whole, which it wasn't even at the end of the Heat series, you have talent in that starting lineup. Derek White's an all-star level player. Drew Holiday's been an all-star. The two Jays, we know who they are. Porzingis, one of the best offseason additions. There is a reason Brad Stevens is executive of the year for what he put together and how we put it together. We're saying the same thing with Bill Zito right now with the Panthers, how you put it together. You know what? It's so simple. Talent wins in sports. The Panthers are unbelievably talented, that their third and even fourth lines with Lorenz right now are giving you goals. We're seeing that. Same thing with the Celtics is they have a depth of talent in their starting lineup. It could be different guys every day, but you could see the talent makes the difference on both ends.
Yeah, no doubt about that. All right. So you've been able to gather some information. You had the closing meetings, everything going on. What do you anticipate with Butler and company? Because message has been kind of sent without even having to ask. You're not getting an extension. They're not going to give you an extension. You can ask for one if you want, but you're not going to get one, and that's pretty obvious right now. So what do you think happens?
You know, I wrote about this in my Sunday column with the Sun Sentinel. Right now, the Heat have too many high number salaries on their payroll. Look, I know you talk about how the Arison should pay the tax and not say anything, which I don't disagree with, Big O. But there also are rules in place that if your payroll is too high, you can't make certain trades. You can't aggregate. You lose your draft choice. You have to pull back a little.
In this case, I've been saying overpay here. I'm not saying I've been for a while now, for over a year now. You and I have been talking about this. I'm not extending Butler anymore. I'm done with Butler already. So I don't need.
You're going to have the salaries of Butler and Adebayo and Hero and Rozier and Duncan Robinson, it's going to be hard to get any better when you're carrying all five of those. So what I wrote is they're going to have to offload someone, not necessarily rats off the ship, but they're going to have to say which salary we get rid of, and it makes it easier to maneuver forward because of that. I felt since the day the trade was made that Tyler Hero and Terry Rozier are somewhat redundant. As much as Duncan Robinson came back at his pay grade, we're seeing almost in every series you find a shooter out there. I mean, look at Dante DiVincenzo and what he's doing with the Knicks. He's like the greatest shooter ever. You can find those guys anyway. So here's what I raised, and I even mentioned this to Jimmy's agent as we spoke. What if the Heat say we're to do a deal just like this, spitballing? Don't aggregate this out there, people. We know Philadelphia wants to get someone who can help them take the next step. They have $55 million. They can sign Paul George into their cap space. If it's a sign and trade and the Clippers move Paul George to the Sixers, they can take in Jimmy Butler's contract into their cap space. He can send out Jimmy for $50 million, get a couple of draft choices, which they need, and Norman Powell back for $20 million. Now, is Norman Powell as good as Jimmy Butler? No. But he can score, and he lets you reset your payroll to see one, like Big O, you're saying, hey, let's start Jaime Jaquez Jr. for a season in Jimmy's role. Let's see if he can do it. We have to learn. Let's learn about our young players for a season. If not, we'll have the financial flexibility to move forward. I could see that kind of deal where if you look on the face of it, Big O, and you tell me, whoa, you're telling me you're trading Jimmy Butler for Norman Powell, are you a moron? No, but as you know from your hard cap in football and other sports, sometimes you have to take a step back salary-wise to reset the ship.
Yes. There's nothing.
It's not like the Marlins would do it just to save the money. It's not like you're sending out the batting champion to save the money. You're doing it to reset your books. You know, matter of fact, the perfect example is because I have listened to the Big O show over the years. And you were the first one who mentioned the Ndamukong Suh contract and how it was going to absolutely cripple the franchise with that level of money. Sometimes money, even well spent, can be overspent. So, yeah, you know what? You're saying there's no Jimmy Butler extension. I'm curious if there's going to be a Jimmy Butler. And I think ever since Pat Riley started talking, wheels are turning around the league. And now we're going to see how this plays out.
Listen, the Heat and Pat Riley and Mickey Arison have already given us more than enough. You you greedy bastards out there, all of you, okay? All you Heat Nation out there, okay? You've won way more than most people. There is nothing wrong with taking a couple steps back for a couple of years where you want to clear out some salaries so
Yes.
you can kind of reset. You got a bunch of young guys that we can actually watch, learn, watch them grow, and then you can develop a core that
Right.
now you could go get yourself liquid and go get a star. I think after 2008 through 10, we understand the machinations of what goes on in this league, how you have to
And
reset.
I'm not so sure you have to step that far back. Remember, to get to 2010, when the Heat went through in 28, 08 and 09, they still made the playoffs. They
Yes.
still were a contending team. So here's my question. Can the Heat also be an eighth place team without Jimmy Butler? That's
Yes.
the thing. They're an eighth place team with them. So you can be an eighth place team. You can enjoy the fun of a round of the playoffs. You don't have to see Alonzo Mourning scowling on the lottery stage up there, dealing with that indignation, and you could still be a different team. So I wrote about this in my Ask Ira also, and I need to know this, Heat Nation out there. Are you okay with being fun, hardworking, competing every single night, possibly finish 42 and 40, but know there's something on the other side of the rainbow that you can get back eventually to that pot of gold?
Hey, listen, this is what I would tell anybody that fights that. Hey, asshole, did you see what they did back in the 2000s when they had to reset and then they brought in Zoe and Timmy and Marley and all that? Hey, asshole, you see when they reset and they brought in Shaq and the boys after they had to break up Butler and Odom? Hey, asshole, you remember 2010? Okay. Hey, you remember they went and got Jimmy Butler? My point is, they are allowed to reset because they know how to reload. If you tell me it's the Marlins, I'm telling you, F you, asshole. They don't know how to do anything right. But these guys, they know how to do it right. But what I've talked about now for years now, they have done things anti-Heat the last few years. They're signing the wrong people. They're giving the wrong people money. They've traded for the wrong people. They've drafted the wrong people.
No, the draft has come around. They had, but they
No,
haven't lately.
no,
Right.
what I'm saying is in the last 10 years, there's been a lot of mistakes that they've made, and it set them back. Where the first 20 years, they were kind of hitting it out of the park constantly. The last 10, they've been kind of chasing their tail all over
I mean,
the
yeah, when you have a year when you take Precious Achua over Tyrese Maxey, it'll set you back a little bit.
take the point guard for LeBron, and you bring in Granger and this guy, and you give Whiteside and Tyler and all those guys money, and the hero contract hasn't really worked out for you, and all that kind of. It's just there's been a lot of shit that's gone on in the last 10 years that hasn't. They really haven't made great decisions, and they've been so desperate they've given out all their draft capital. They need to take a couple steps back. Let's get some draft capital back. Let's build some stuff up. Let's
And I
steal.
can do that with a Jimmy Butler trade if you understand that Jimmy helped get you to the finals twice in 4 years, and instead of the finals, it might just be the conference semifinals. And if you can deal with that, I
Hey,
think there is a path forward.
and a year without Jimmy, and maybe Tyler's out there for the next year with you. Maybe he builds his value up again, and somebody in the trading deadline next year, he's hot. They take him off. You get more draft
Maybe
capital.
Rozier seizes his moment. You get to establish a little more. You get to explore a little more. Have no issue with that as long as people, and they're listening every week in our accurate Pembroke Pines report, understand sometimes you have to take a slight dip, not lottery dip, just to get back up on the other side. I'm fine with that.
And they are the people that can do it. That's my problem with all of this, that these are the kind of people that I don't have a problem with. Hey, look, man, we're going to take a step back at the year or two. Got to get some salaries out. Got to get some draft capital. Dude, that makes all the sense in the world. Let's go. Let's move forward. Let's add more banners up there. Let's go. Because the last 10 years, you're kind of chasing your tail. You can't get that other star for Jimmy. Now he's gotten too old for you. It's over now. You've got to turn the page. And just it seems like they might be finally focused on that. I want you to do a little bit of what OKC did and then do it Heat style, where you can finish it off with a star somewhere.
Hey, you know what? And the Jimmy Butler trade could be that, because think about the Paul George trade, how it got him Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and first-round capital. So if you're bold, now again, I don't go too long in this week's segment, but again, did you wait a year too long? And we'll pick that up next week, Big O, because I know your thoughts on that.
No, yeah, they did wait a year too long, but right now you still have a team in Philadelphia that's desperate enough. That I think,
And the Clippers desperate enough also after Paul George and
yeah,
going out in the first round. Yeah, I agree.
that's true. So you have enough that maybe you might
Right.
be able to unload Jimmy there and try to turn the team around. It's just they're the right people to have the patience with. This is the right organization. So let's just do it the right way. You've done it before. Let's do it again, man. The way you're doing it now, it's not working. What you're doing now is not working. You know what I mean? So you got to get rid of Jimmy and Tyler somehow, and Bam has to stay. As much as I say he's a super role player, Bam's not the problem here. Okay, he's not the issue here. You've got to surround him with the other two stars, and then everything will be just fine. I don't have a problem with that, but it's just we got to build it the right way here, and they're not building it the right way. All right, what do you got going on this Sentinel?
What am I ask Ira today about? A lot of people are linking Zach Edey to the Heat, Purdue Center National two-time Player of the Year at 15. It's possible. So would the Heat actually go for another big man alongside Bam and play him at the 4? I think it'll be interesting if Zach is there when they get to number 15. That's worth exploring. And I spoke to Patty Mills and DeLon Wright at the end of the season whether they'd like to come back. They said yes, but now the Heat have to decide enough with new country for old man, or whether they need to go back to the kids. That'll come down to Josh Richardson, whether he opts in, and what the Heat do with their glut of guards. So at least they know they have a couple of guys who spent a couple of months here, know the system, want to be back. So they'll sort of be waiting in the wings. Two good guys. I would not mind DeLon Wright coming back. I think he was very productive in the 2 months that he played here.
No, I don't have a problem with DeLon Wright. In fact, I think Rozier will play his best basketball he's ever played in his life next year. Yes. Once they get him now for an entire offseason and
in the system healthy, absolutely.
That he was already doing that. He was already turning the corner as it is. I think Terry will grow like crazy. I think like most players, if you're committed, you're going to grow here every single time, pretty much. So yeah. Follow him on Twitter at Ira Heatbeat and catch his exceptional work there at the South Florida Sun Sentinel. Ira, as always, thank you, my friend. Appreciate it.
Catch you next week, Accurate Pembroke Pines. We'll talk about what the Knicks do next after being eliminated. Thanks, Big O.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Thank you all out there, as always. Don't forget, you can visit our great friends at Acura of Pembroke Pines at 15601 Pines Boulevard, just off of I-75 and Pines. And go see Larry Schlossberg, Pat Nasto, Tony Stampone. Tell them that Big O sent you. They will take care of you. And, folks, they got some deals going on. They've got their 16th anniversary sale going on right now. You can get 3.9% financing for 60 months. The 2024 Integra, $319. The 2024 RDX, $419. The MDX 2024, $429. Again, 3.9% financing for 60 months. They've also got a fleet of certified pre-owned vehicles. Man, they look like they're brand new. They're in amazing shape. So get on down there, check it out. And if you own or lease an Acura, Mike Chan, Jordan Ferber, they do a great job running that service department. So tell them that Big O sent you. They will take care of you at Craig Zinn's Acura of Pembroke Pines.